Hello again. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, and today's class is Manage Storage Spaces and Storage Pools in Windows Server 2012. Now, as they say, whenever Microsoft sees a good thing, they will catch up at some point. So basically, storage spaces and storage pools in Windows Server 2012 is a ripoff of LVM from Linux. But hey, even if it is a ripoff of LVM from Linux, it is a very useful piece of functionality in the Windows Server world, and it makes our lives as administrators a lot easier. So with all the things that we've been talking about lately, with all the components in technology and computers, we have been talking about how we are trying to separate out all of the different layers in a type of technology so that we can administer those layers separately. So when we talk about virtualization, when we talk about software-defined networking, we're talking about separating out these different layers and managing each layer separately. Well, that's what storage spaces and storage pools does for administering or managing data on your server. So back in the day when you had data on your server, essentially you had a hard drive. The hard drive was formatted and had a partition, and the data was all put onto that partition. So for all intents and purposes, that hard drive, the partition, and the data was all one unit. They then added RAID, but even with RAID, basically you added another component to that unit, but it was all one big chunk of stuff. The data and the partition and the hard drive and even the RAID card was all one unit. If anything failed, oh spaghetti monster, help you, because everything kind of went to hell very quickly. Now with storage spaces, what we're doing is we're separating out all of the different layers so that we can manage them separately and so that we have more fault tolerance and more flexibility. So now what we do is we have the physical hard drives that we add to the server. What we're going to do now is we're going to turn those hard drives into what is called a storage pool. So we take those hard drives and put them into a pool of storage. From there, we can create virtual hard drives that the server will see as if they were physical hard drives. We can format those virtual hard drives, and then we can add volumes to the virtual hard drive so that you can actually store data. So now the hard drives, the physical hard drives themselves, are separated from the virtual hard drives, which are then separated from the volumes so that they can all be managed separately. Why this makes life a lot easier for us is it allows us to add and subtract hard drives to the system much more easily than you could before. So you don't have to buy any new software, you don't have to go out and pay $600 for some Acronis thing. So now if you want to add more hard drive space to a server, you can simply slot in a new hard drive, you can add it to the pool, you can extend the virtual hard drive, you can extend the volume, and away you go. All of these things are separated onto different levels. So to explain to you, to really show you how this works, we'll go over to my server and actually demonstrate this to you. So what I have now is, again, I have my demonstration machine that we've been using for a long time now. So it's Windows 8, and then I have VirtualBox installed on Windows 8, and then within VirtualBox I have a Windows 2012 file server. So what I have done is I've added 4 virtual hard drives to that virtual file server. So that's what's going on here. Now if you have a real server, so if you have a real piece of metal server in front of you, instead of having these virtual hard drives like we do in VirtualBox, you would actually add physical hard drives to the server. But let's go over to the computer so I can show you basically how this works, because this is just really cool. So again, like I say, we're looking at VirtualBox right now, and this is the file server I'm using for the demonstration. If I right click and I go to settings, I just want to show you if we go to storage. So this is the system drive. This is where the operating system is installed, but then I've added disk 1, disk 2, disk 3, disk 4, as basically these are the equivalent of physical hard drives that I have added to the system to make this work. So we're going to open up the file server. So now we're at the Windows 2012 file server. And what we need to do is we need to open up Server Manager. So Server Manager is what we are going to be working in to do all of our work, or most of our work today. So what we'll do is we'll go up and we'll go over to File and Storage Services. And then once we get here, we'll go down to Storage Pools. So the process is we take the hard drives, we turn them into a storage pool. Once there's a storage pool, we create a virtual hard drive in the storage from the storage pool, and then once we have done that, we create a volume on the virtual hard drive. So when we come in here for the storage pools, there's going to be this primordial. I don't really understand the point of the primordial. It's just kind of here. So don't really worry about it. What we want to do is we're going to right click and we're going to do new storage pool. So if you look down at the bottom here, you can see physical disks, and you can see these 4 physical disks that have been added to the machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click, I'm going to do new storage pool, we do next, we give the pool a name, because Windows 2012 really likes names. We do next, and then we say what hard drives we want to add to the pool. So we'll do just 3 right now, because I want to show you how you can add hard drives to the pool later. Now over here for allocation, there's automatic or hot spare. For this class, since I try to keep things simple for you guys, just leave it with automatic. If you want to do your own self-studying and figure out about hot spare and all that, by all means do it. But right now I would suggest you just leave it automatic. That makes, basically what this means is that the Windows server will auto-magically manage all of this stuff and you don't have to worry about it. So then from there we're going to click next. So it's going to turn those 3 hard drives, so physical disks 1, 2, and 3, it's going to turn that into a pool. And then we're going to create. So now that we have created that pool, we can see that it's sitting here as a pool. So if we click on it, the pool, we can see that there's physical disks here, and these 3 physical disks are in the pool. But then under virtual disks, we can see that there's no virtual disks here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to create a virtual disk. We're going to start the wizard. So now we're going to do next. It's going to ask what pool do we want to create the disk from. So just the pool we have. Again, with server, you know, this is as much an art as a science. So you could have 5 pools or 10 pools on here. If you had 20 hard drives connected to the system, you could create, I don't know, you could create 10 different pools if you really wanted to. But we just have 1, so then we'll click next. Again, it's always asking for the name, D-I-S-K, we're going to say. Then we're going to do next. And then what it's going to ask here is what kind of fault tolerance do we have? Again, remember how I was saying we're separating the hardware from the fault tolerance, from the hard drives, from all that stuff. So the fault tolerance is not on the hard drive layer as it was before, but now it's when we actually create this virtual disk. So this is a lot like RAID here. It's kind of like Microsoft's version of RAID. So we have simple. What this means is data will be striped across all the physical disks in the pool with no fault tolerance. If a single disk in the pool fails, all your data is gone. So I would suggest not doing that. We have mirror. What mirror means is data is duplicated on 2 or 3 physical disks, increasing the reliability. So what this means is that your data is actually copied to multiple disks, so if 1 or 2 fail, you don't lose all of your data. So you'll see here, you need at least 5 disks to protect you from 2 simultaneous disk failures. Then there's parity, which is basically like the old-fashioned RAID 5. Disk striping with parity, it stripes across all the disks and then uses 1 for fault tolerance. So 1 can fail and everything stays up and running. I would suggest you go with mirroring, but again, art and science, at the end of the day, you decide what is best. And then we're going to do next. Then it's going to say provisioning type, thin or fixed. So fixed is like creating an old-fashioned partition where you say you want the hard drive, the partition to be 75 gigs, and it uses all of those 75 gigs immediately for the partition. What thin does is it only actually uses the space as it needs it. So you say that you want the partition to be 75 gigs in size, it will start with as small a partition as it can, and then it will automatically increase the partition size as the drive as your needs enlarge. So I would say stay with thin. Thin is very good for like when you start, if you have to do data recovery in the future, I would say just do thin. From here, it'll ask you what size do you want this hard drive to be. So I would just say 72 gigs. And then I do next, and it gives you all the information, and then it creates, and then we do close. So now we have created this virtual disk. So we have the physical disks that have been turned into the pool, and then from the pool we have created the virtual disk. Now one of the things I want to show you then is if we go over to computer management and we go over to disk management, when you get this, just cancel, don't do anything. I want to show you that now only 2 hard drives are seen by the system, or 2 of the new hard drives. So we have the system drive like we had before. We have disk 4, this is the one I left out of the pool, and then now this is the new virtual hard drive that we created. So understand that the server itself sees that virtual hard drive as an actual hard drive. And you will also see that it's not formatted at this point. So it's a hard drive, but it actually doesn't show up anywhere. So if we go to File Explorer and I go to Computer, you can see that the hard drive doesn't show up anywhere yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to minimize, and we're going to right click on the virtual disk, and we're going to do New Volume. New volume is going to create the volume that we can actually use to store data on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to disk 5. So this is that virtual disk that we created with 72 gigs of capacity. Click Next. It says what do you want the volume size to be? So we'll leave it as it is. And what drive letter do you want it to be? And it's E. What file system? File allocation unit. Just leave it as default. Click Next. Blah, 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 and now we are going to hit create. So we created the pool, then we created the virtual hard drive, now we've created the volume. Now that we've created a volume, we have some place we can now store data on this server. So this volume is now on the virtual hard drive that's been created out of the pool, and the pool has been created out of the hard drives that you've added onto the computer. So all of these different layers. Now what makes things really cool with Server 2012 is we have the ability to add hard drives to the pool so that we can increase the size of the virtual hard drives and then the volumes themselves. One of the big problems that we have as technicians in the modern world is every time we buy any amount of storage that we think is way more storage than we would ever need, Microsoft or some company comes out with some new file standard that is so much larger than anything else we have seen before. I remember the days when you took a digital picture and it took up like 200 kilobytes of space. Hey, that's no big deal, right? Now some of these raw pictures that people are taking are like 500 megs, like per picture. So if you buy this new 2012 server, you create the storage pool, you create the volumes, and you think, hey, look, that's like 5 terabytes of storage. Nobody's ever going to use that amount of storage. Well, guess what? In 2 years, probably all that storage is used up. Well, what's nice with these storage pools and storage spaces is you can add a new hard drive, you can increase the size of the pool. After you've increased the size of the pool, you can increase the size of the virtual hard disk, and then you can increase the size of the volume. So you can keep increasing the sizes of these things. So we go back to the computer. Again, as I said before, with this pool, I only added 3 of the hard drives. So now I want to add another one. So I right click, and I can do Add Physical Disk. So from there, I can see this other physical disk that I did not add before. I can select that allocation. Again, I leave OK. And now that 4th disk has been added to the storage pool so that the overall capacity is now 97 gigs. So it was like 75 before, so now we've increased the size. So imagine with your server, if you could add a new 2 terabyte hard drive to your server, that would make your life a lot easier. Now what we can do for the disk is I can simply go to the disk and I can extend the virtual disk. So since I know the capacity is 97 gigs, I can now make that virtual hard drive 97 gigs. We do OK. So now it's extending. So now the capacity of that virtual hard drive is 97 gigs. We can then go to the volume. So this new volume here that only has like 72 gigs of space, I can right click, I can do extend, and from here I can enlarge that also. So we'll just leave it at like 96 just so I don't have any problems here. So now that easily, I was able to add a hard drive to the pool, extend the virtual hard drive, and then extend the partition, and there you go. That is what makes life so wonderful with these storage pools and storage spaces. Now the one thing you'll notice is that everything here says extend. So extend volume, right? If we go back here, or if we go back to pools and I right click, extend virtual disk or add. It's always about adding. Now, as you know, if you've been dealing with Server 2012 or 2008, you normally have the ability not just to extend a volume, but to also shrink it. If you actually want to shrink a volume, oddly enough, you have to go back here to Computer Management. And when you're at Computer Management, this is where you will be able to shrink the volume if you wanted to. So this new volume E, for some reason I want to shrink it, this is where it gives me the ability to shrink. So again, when you're using the server manager, it's all about extend, 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 bigger, bigger, bigger. If you want to shrink, you would actually come here into Computer Management to shrink that volume. I'm not going to do it now because you can run into a few problems when you're dealing with that. So that's basically what there is with storage spaces. So this is LVM for the Windows world, and it's really, 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 really cool. Now this is one of those things that you need to play with when you're not dealing with real data. Storage spaces, storage pools, very robust, very useful, very good, very resilient. I would definitely use this in an enterprise environment without thinking twice about it. But make sure you have a backup system for it, and again, make sure you know what you're doing. When you're dealing with the size of the data sets we have now, just the massive amounts of data some companies have, or even some homes have, if you do something wrong, you could create a mess that quick. And again, it's not difficult to recover 4 terabytes of data, but it's going to take you a really, really, really long time if you do something stupid. So again, the main point of storage spaces and storage pools is we're separating out all the layers of storage to store data on your server. So the hard drives are their own thing, then you have the pool, then you have the virtual hard drive, and then you have the volume. These are all different layers that are managed separately. What this allows us to do, since we're managing them separately, is we can go in and we can play and we can do some cool things. We can extend, we can shrink, we can do thin provisioning, all of that kind of stuff. The only thing in here to realize with the hard drives is, again, in the Windows Server world, any of the Windows worlds, you can't play with the system hard drive. So the system hard drive is a drive that has the operating system installed, so you can't add the system hard drive to a storage pool or do any of that fancy stuff because Microsoft doesn't want you messing with it and just mucking everything up. So just keep that in mind. So when you're thinking about the number of hard drives you have on your server, don't think about the system hard drive, because I can see you guys going, oh, my system hard drive is a 3 terabyte hard drive, so I'll use space from that. No. I don't care. Your system drive could be a 20 terabyte hard drive, but you simply can't use it for these pools. So that's just something to keep in mind there. But again, this is just a wonderful thing. Go play with it because, again, I mean, it's just I mean, for storing data, it just makes life a lot easier, especially, again, nowadays, as we start saving more and more and more and more and more data, being able to simply put a new hard drive into your server, extend that pool, extend the virtual hard drive, extend the volume, and away you go. Again, like I say, with the fault tolerance and redundancy, Microsoft is doing all that stuff auto-magically. So you don't have to worry about breaking mirrors or breaking the array or any of that kind of stuff. You don't really have to worry about doing anything too awfully stupid with RAID. Again, in the real world, one of the biggest problems I've seen with RAID is new technicians doing something really stupid with the RAID configuration and then just losing all of data. So the nice part with this is it's all kind of just done auto-magically in the background. This does not mean You don't need a backup system. Again, I do trust this. I do believe this is robust. I would use this in an enterprise world, and you bet your bongos I would also have a backup system just in case anything happened. Again, be very, very careful with this, because as we're storing more and more data, it's very easy to kind of like forget or not think about a backup system, or kind of like put the backup system into a back burner and say I'll figure out about it later. But if you've got 5 terabytes or if you've got 10 terabytes in some kind of storage unit and something goes wrong and you don't have a backup system, that could be very nasty. So this does have fault tolerance, this does have redundancy, but you still need a backup system. So as you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy. Today's class was Managed Storage Spaces and Storage Pools in Windows Server 2012. Again, I gave you an overview of how this works. There is more to it. So again, go in, play with it, do some Google searches, but this is basically the overview. You can go in, you can do what I showed you today, and just make your life a lot easier. So as always, I enjoyed teaching this class, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.